Hello 8th graders and welcome to part 3 of the Life Science Turbo Review. This is Mrs. Schultz. Some of you have me this year as a teacher, some of you had me last year, and some of you even had me for the last 2 years. We are going to get started on page 14. Turn there if you haven't done so yet. Our first topic for today is reproduction. Organisms need to reproduce for a variety of ways: to repair, to grow, to produce new offspring, to pass on genes to the next generation. Last year we talked about 2 ways that organisms can reproduce. They are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. The next video is going to give you an overview of both of them.
Asexual reproduction. When an organism reproduces, it makes another of the same species. Some organisms reproduce sexually. Cows make more cows, and pigs make more pigs. Sexual reproduction combines genes from a mother and a father, making a genetically unique organism. Other organisms reproduce asexually. In asexual reproduction, all of the genes come from a single parent. Asexually produced offspring are genetically identical to the parent. There are many methods of asexual reproduction. In some one-celled organisms, cell division is a method of asexual reproduction. Bacteria cells reproduce through cell division. The cell makes a copy of its DNA, then sends it to the new bacteria cell. Some bacteria can reproduce as fast as every 20 minutes. Another method of asexual reproduction is budding. Unicellular yeast cells grow new cells off the side of another. When the cell is developed, it falls off, and a new yeast cell is produced. Some organisms produce offspring by splitting into pieces. A sea anemone can split down the middle, resulting in the production of another individual identical to the original. Some worms, if split, will continue to live as 2 identical worms. Both sexual and asexual reproduction produce offspring. However, asexual reproduction makes genetically identical offspring. Sexual reproduction makes genetically unique offspring. So try taking a cutting of a plant. You will be making another that has the same DNA as the parent. You just helped the plant to reproduce asexually. Asexual reproduction.
Alright, let's get back to the note sheet on page 14. We're going to summarize what that video just talked about. You do need to fill in the underlined information that's shown in white. So to start off with, we have asexual reproduction. What is it? It involves only one parent, and that one parent divides into 2, resulting in offspring that are identical to the parent and to each other. There's no mixing of genes. The DNA is an exact copy or clone. Some advantages: it only takes one. There's no mate needed, and reproduction happens very quickly. A disadvantage is that there's no genetic diversity. Because the DNA is exactly the same, any problems with the parent DNA will be passed to the offspring. The next type is sexual reproduction. This does involve 2 parents, where they each have specialized cells, where those 2 cells join to make one new offspring. Each parent gives half of their genes or half their DNA, and then is combined with the other half to create a unique offspring that is not identical to the parent or other siblings. An advantage would be genetic diversity. Genes passed from 2 parents mix. A disadvantage or disadvantages are that it takes 2, and mate needs to be found, and it takes more time and energy. Alright, reproduction is over. We're moving on to how organisms interact with each other. One way organisms interact is by eating each other, and means that they are getting their energy from that relationship. A food chain shows a simple relationship where one organism eats another one, and that energy is passed through the organisms in the food chain. More realistic is a food web. In reality, most organisms do not just feed on one other organism, but many different things. So a food web is a network of many food chains in an ecosystem that shows the variety of relationships. The picture below is a food chain because it's showing just a linear, one eating another type of relationship where the energy is passed from the sun to the grass, to the grasshopper, to the mouse, to the snake, to the hawk. Now, those mushrooms are not eating the hawk. They are decomposing all the way along at every step of the food chain and returning the nutrients to the soil for the next generation to use. As you watch the next video clip, you're going to write down a definition for each of the things listed on the left side of the sheet. Sun has been done for you as an example. So the sun is the source of energy in the ecosystem, and you need to try to identify the rest of them with a simple definition as the video plays.
Score! Just in time for Rhinozilla's playtime.
Hey, RJ. Yeah, I'm letting Rhino have some recess today. I think he sees a cricket. Go, Rhino! Get it!
He's got it cornered next to that spider web. Oh, he missed! Strike one for Rhino.
That spider took Rhino's food!
Mia, that cricket wasn't just Rhino's food.
Well, I thought crickets were a part of Rhinozilla's food chain. Doesn't that mean they're his food?
Yeah, it does. Crickets are part of Rhinozilla's food chain, but spiders eat crickets too.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, Rhino is an omnivore. Omni means all. Rhinozilla eats meat like the cricket, and plants too. He eats it all. Pigs and chickens are omnivores too.
So are spiders omnivores?
Nope, not spiders. Spiders are carnivores. They just eat meat.
Alright, so Rhino is an omnivore, the spider is a carnivore, yet the cricket is part of the spider's food chain and Rhino's food chain.
Exactly, which makes them both part of the same food web.
RJ, what is a food web?
A food web is a complex network of food chains in an ecosystem. It's like a web that shows how the food chains in an ecosystem are all connected. Rhino and the spider both eat crickets, so their food chains overlap. They're both part of the same food web.
So animals in a food web can eat the same foods, like crickets?
Yep. A food chain shows just one line of different levels of consumers, or plants or animals that get their food from other living things. But a food web is a lot more complex. Instead of just one type of producer, one herbivore, one carnivore, like on a food chain, a food web links many chains together, showing a whole ecosystem of many decomposers, producers, herbivores, and carnivores. It shows how animals and plants share food in their ecosystem.
So a food chain is just a straight line of connections, but a food web is, well, a web.
Right. On a food web, you can see how all sorts of animals' food chains are connected. Herbivores, like the cricket, a koala bear, a giraffe. Carnivores, like the spider, cheetahs, and lions. Omnivores, like Rhinozilla, pigs, and chickens. They're all connected on the food web. So
the cricket wasn't just part of Rhinozilla's food chain. Rhino and the spider are part of the same food web, and that connects their food chains.
right. Organisms like Rhino, a lizard, and the spider that share a food web are dependent on each other within an ecosystem.
A food chain is simple, but a food web shows the complex feeding relationships between organisms in an ecosystem. Many organisms make up each level of a food web: decomposers, producers, herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores.
You got it. But you don't got Rhino. Where'd he go?
Rhino? Rhino!
Found him. Look.
I guess now he really is part of the same web as the spider.
All right, let's go ahead and summarize each of those. Once again, we did the sun already. An omnivore is something that eats both meat and plants. Omni means all, vor means to eat. Carne means meat or flesh, so the word literally means to eat meat. Herbivores, herb means plant. Herbivores eat only plants. Producers are those things that make their own food through the process of photosynthesis. We call them producers because they're producing food for themselves, but other things within the food chain and food web. And then the decomposers. The decomposers recycle the nutrients and return them to the soil for the next generation. You have this picture at the bottom of page 14. We're going to add some labels. In addition to identifying omnivores and carnivores and herbivores and producers, there are different levels of consumers. We're going to label those and talk about them. The grass in this picture is the producer. It's using sun, light, water, and carbon dioxide to make food for itself. In the process, it also makes food for the grasshopper, which is known as the primary consumer. A primary consumer eats the producer. The mouse is considered a secondary consumer. Secondary consumers eat the primary consumers. So we're just going to keep counting up. The snake is a tertiary or a third level consumer because it eats the secondary consumer. The hawk is technically called a quaternary consumer, which is a fourth level consumer. We're not adding that label. The mushrooms in this case, or the fungus, they're the decomposers. But remember, they're decomposing every step of the way, breaking down those organisms and returning their nutrients to the soil. All right, next topic within interactions of organisms is parasitism. A parasite lives in or on a host, but it's not usually killed, it's just harmed. It's not completely consumed. I'm going to give you two examples. You choose one of them to write down. A tapeworm living in the small intestine of a dog. The dog's digestive system has digested the food to a point that the tapeworm can use, and it absorbs the food within the small intestine. The tapeworm gets a nice meal. The dog lacks nutrition and nutrients because it's being stolen from it. A tick on a human is another example. The tick gets a food meal. The human not only gets loss of blood, but can contract a disease that can be transferred through ticks. Predator-prey is our last topic for this section. This is where one species consumes or eats the other. We were talking about this within the food chain and food web as well. The predator is the hunter, the prey is the hunted. Once again, choose an example. Or write your own. A lion and a zebra. The lion's the predator, the zebra's the prey. Crocodile and a fruit bat. Crocodile is the predator, the prey is the fruit bat. Finally, please write at least one way that predators and prey and parasites and hosts are similar, and one way that they are different from each other. That concludes part 3. Good luck on your MCAs.